Good morning. Chapter 26, Lecture 4 or Lecture D. We'll get through this. This will be a quick lecture today, hopefully. You guys know the order of business, things that are going on that you need to get done. This will be the last lecture for probably a week and a half, 2 weeks almost. Next week's all book work, working on your paper. Yep. If you have not seen it, here is the book that you need to be reading. Good catch. And the questions are on the feed. If you scroll down, they're down there. I'll try to make an actual Dropbox that might help and put that information in again. But, all right. The Second Gilded Age. We talked about Ronald Reagan's election yesterday. Widely remembered as a decade of misplaced values. Buying out companies generated more profit than running them. So people would buy companies, sell them, move people around. A new term called the yuppie will emerge. Our current president, Trump, was a yuppie. The young urban professional who endured a high income working in a bank, real estate, brokerage, whatever, lived lavishly, had lots of stuff that was gold, designer, lived a very lavish life. One other thing that defined a yuppie at this time was also snorting crack. I'm not saying the president did that, but a lot of yuppies would have their high-end designer outfits, cars, whatever. Then they go in the bathroom and literally snort crack. So it was a very intense lifestyle. Federal Savings and Loan Insurance Company faced bankruptcy from poor decisions. They will be bailed out. Federal spending far outstripped income, produced large budget deficits for the government, mostly to do heavy spending on military. Reagan greatly increased military expenditures. Reagan remained immensely popular and he won re-election in 1984. I think it's the biggest landslide victory ever. I think I got it on the next slide. Yeah. This is Reagan's victory in 1984. I think who did he run? Was it Mondale he ran against, or was it Dukakis? Oh, mine. It was Dukakis. I can see his name down there. It's right there. Or Mondale. There we go. Mondale. Mondale only won the District of Columbia, which is the capital itself, and Minnesota. Reagan won everything else, and the kitchen sink. Like I said, electoral vote 525 to 13. Popular vote 58 to 42%. Like I said, I think this is the biggest election victory of all time. Going back to conservatives and Reagan, left intact core elements of the welfare state. He did not go after it like some people thought he would. Did little to advance social aim of the Christian right. So though he gets immense backing from the religious right, he doesn't go out of his way to promote it. Bowers versus Hardwick Supreme Court did not uphold the constitutionality of state laws outlining homosexual acts. This will be reversed in 2003 and then completely reversed in 2015 as far as marriage is concerned. So he did the court did back under his presidency outline homosexual acts. If you did not know that, for years it was illegal to commit any homosexual act on a lot of states. The Reagan Revolution 4. Reagan in the Cold War called the Soviet Union an evil empire. Some people thought he was going to lead us into a nuclear apocalypse. He did not. He sponsored the largest military buildup in American history, peacetime I should add as well. He proposed a space-based missile defense system dubbed Star Wars. It never actually came to fruition, but they wanted to be able to shoot missiles down from space using laser beams.
Space Task Force.
So the Space Task Force or Space Force is not a new incarnation. He wanted to overturn the Vietnam Syndrome, widespread public reluctance to commit American forces overseas. He wanted to make America's military great again. He wanted to move past Vietnam, learn from it. And the reality is what he's going to get is a very state-of-the-art military when he leaves the presidency. That military will be displayed, we'll get to it later, the Persian Gulf in 91, 92, or 90-91 when the U.S. goes into Iraq the first time. That military will be in full display, and we kick butt. We are back and better than ever. And that's due to Reagan's insistence that we rebuild our military. And without that, we wouldn't have been as probably proficient in 1990-91 as we were. Thus, he will send troops to Grenada to oust a pro-Cuban government. The United States poured funds to combat insurgencies against the governments of El Salvador and Guatemala, supported authoritarian regimes if they were non-communist only. So we do more support internationally like we have been. But one of these events is going to become a phenomenon that we always remember, and it's called Iran-Contra affair. In 1984, Congress banned military aid to the Contras, which was a group fighting Sandinista government of Nicaragua. So you have the country of Nicaragua that's in turmoil. We support this rebel group named the Contras. Now, Congress says we are not going to sell them anything. Banned it, right? You cannot sell to them. Reagan secretly authorized the sale of arms to Iran, who was at war with Iraq, in order to secure the release of a number of American hostages held by Islamic groups in the Middle East. So they make an agreement, right? So they sell weapons to Iran so they can fight Iraq. That money then is funneled secretly to another fund. The CIA Director William Casey and Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North set up a system that diverted some of that money to buy military supplies for the Contras in defiance of the congressional ban. So, what did they essentially do? They broke the law, right? Congress says you will not give aid to the Contras. So, Congress had no way to see, through this very secretive agreement, that the money from the Iran sales was going to the Contras. Does that make sense? They're hiding the money, right? The problem is, it's highly illegal. There was a question, did Reagan know about this? Well, this is what I believe Reagan did. Dalton, you're in the military. Zach, we'll say you're in the military. Aiden, you're a chief of staff for me or whatever. I'm the president. I tell you, you can sell weapons to Iran. Okay, I know about that, right? I authorize that. Do whatever else you need to do. I say something like that. You say, what should the money go for? I'm like, use it appropriately. Okay? Is that a blanket statement? You then, in turn, say, let's sell it to the Contras, or give it back to the Contras. But I'm not in the room, I'm not in that discussion. I leave. Do I know that you're giving that to the Contras?
No.
What have I done to myself for protection? You ever heard of the term plausible?
Vague. You're vague about.
I'm vague. Have you ever heard of the term plausible deniability? If I don't know it, can I lie about it? I give you the authorization, take care of the money, right? Use it appropriately. That's A to Z, right? Now, when it comes back, Mr. President, did you know that they were giving money to, or you're selling weapons to Iran? Yes, I authorized that. Okay, check mark. Did you know that that aid was going against congressional law and going to the Contras? No, I did not. I did not know that it was going to the Contras. What did Reagan do for himself? He set himself up that they could do a lot of these things without compromising integrity and lying, right? Now, in 1987, after the Middle Eastern newspaper leaked the story, Congress held televised hearings that revealed a pattern of official duplicity and violation of law reminiscent in the Nixon era. However, 11 members of the administration were convicted of perjury, destroying documents, the most famous being Oliver North in the top right. Reagan denied knowledge of the illegal proceedings, but undermined confidence that he controlled his own administration. So one thing that will happen about this is Oliver North is the fall guy. He's basically like Zach. He knew that the money was going to the Contras, moving it around. A lot of the money disappeared and was unaccounted for. That was another problem. But what it showed was, what did Reagan actually know? Was he in control of the government, or was he just had a bunch of people doing everything for him? Right? So this undermines Reagan's confidence, or people's confidence in Reagan. It doesn't destroy his presidency. Like I said, he went on. He didn't lie, from what we can tell. But the difference between Nixon and Reagan is Reagan didn't try to hide it all. He was much more upfront, attacked it head on, versus hiding like Nixon, right? That's the difference. And that's what ultimately will save him. Now, Reagan and Gorbachev. So the Iran-Contra is obviously a black mark on Reagan. But one thing that Reagan, without a doubt, did very well was he communicated to the Soviet premier, the newly elected Gorbachev. He softened his anti-communist rhetoric and established good relations with Mikhail Gorbachev. Actually, I think Gorbachev came to Reagan's funeral in 2004 when he passed away. Gorbachev came to power in 1985, looked to reform the Soviet Union's political system. He had two things that he came to power with: Glasnost and Perestroika. Glasnost was political openness. I mean, we're going to start revealing more. We're going to be more open. Remember, the Soviets have been very closed. They didn't tell a lot of what was going on there. Even their own people didn't know what was going on. And the perestroika is we're going to reform our economy. We're going to start allowing maybe some capitalistic elements. We're going to start looking to jumpstart our economy, because by this point, the socialist economy of the Soviet Union is dying. It's falling apart. It's not meeting what it needs to do. So this will, the Gorbachev coming to power and then working with Reagan, the tension between the Soviet Union and the United States is going to lighten significantly. Okay? And then Reagan will give his very famous speech in 1986, 87. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, right in front of the Berlin Wall, right? Now, did the Cold War end under Reagan? No, he did not see the end as president. But he set in motion things that would help escalate its decline. Now, Reagan's legacy. We could go much longer into Reagan's legacy. I've given you some Cliff Note versions. We've went into some things. His presidency revealed a contradiction at the heart of modern conservatism. Inspired speculative frenzy, enriched architects of corporate takeovers and investors. Big business loved him. Some smaller companies, not so much. Plant closing, job losses, and communities destroyed. People blame him. That's not all his fault. But his trickle-down economics did spur economic growth, but not everyone always prospered from it. Few figures have so successfully changed the landscape of language of politics. He was a great communicator, using evil empire to describe the Soviets, just a way he could connect to people and go on television and sell it. He was just a different presidential candidate that we've never seen before. His natural successor was his vice president, George H. Bush, who ran in 1988 and will win the election. We'll get to that more in a couple weeks. But the election of 1988 was not an easy shoo-in for George H. Bush. Television advertisements and media exposés now dominated political campaigns, so that you start to see the emergence of the modern campaign, negative campaigning, constant 24-hour news coverage of candidates. All we need to do is go back 2.5 years and see Trump and Hillary. It was 24 hours a day how bad Trump is and how okay Hillary is, right? Hillary's a lesser of two evils. That's basically what they kept saying, right? It was over and over and over. That will emerge in 1988. A rough campaign of attacks, rumors, and ups and downs. Bush will easily win. I'm not going to say easily win. He wins easily in the election, but it's a tough campaign. Democrats had to regroup. They had to find a new strategy to really go after the Republicans, and if they wanted to have any future going forward, because relatively outside of Carter, from 68 to 88, Republicans controlled the presidency all but 4 years, right? Carter from 76 to 80. So from 68 to 92, Republicans control the presidency. That's a long time. That's 24 years. Or that's 20 years out of 24 years, the president is Republican. That's crazy, isn't it? So, the Democrats are going to have to find a new strategy if they want to defeat the Republicans. Now, that being said, we're going to get into the post-Cold War years. We'll look at when we come back in a couple weeks, and we'll see how the world is different in 88 to today.